12,000 years ago, something happened that would change the course of humanity forever. A decision made by no single person, yet it rewrote history. What made humans stop chasing their food, and start growing it? How did planting a single seed ignite the birth of cities, empires, and modern life? When did survival stop being a hunt, and become a harvest? This is the story of how agriculture began. Let's start. Roughly 11,700 years ago, Earth entered the Holocene epoch. Glaciers retreated. Weather patterns stabilized. What was once a frozen, brutal wasteland became green, wet, and fertile, especially in the region we now call the Fertile Crescent. In places like the Levant and Mesopotamia, wild grasses grew thick. Herds of animals roamed predictably. Rivers like the Tigris, Euphrates, and Jordan carved lifelines into the earth. For tens of thousands of years, humans had survived as hunter-gatherers, eating what they could find or kill. But now, the world offered something different: consistency. No longer at the mercy of migration or drought, humans began to observe nature's rhythm. They saw patterns in plants. They noticed that seeds dropped near camp sprouted new growth. They realized they could influence the land, not just survive on it. This wasn't a revolution in a year. It was a slow, accidental reprogramming of the human brain, and of nature itself. The birth of agriculture wasn't a discovery. It was a realization. Imagine this: a woman gathers wild wheat. Some falls near her shelter. The next season, those seeds sprout. She notices. She saves more. She scatters them deliberately. Over years, and generations, this accidental habit becomes knowledge. Humans began selecting the strongest seeds. The biggest grains. The most productive fields. This was artificial selection in its infancy, shaping nature to fit human needs. By around 10,000 BCE, early cultivation was happening across the Fertile Crescent. Not farms like we know, but controlled patches of wild cereal grasses. Early humans weren't yet farmers, but they were on their way. And they weren't just changing their food, they were changing their future. If the hunter-gatherer life was a dance with nature, then domestication was when humans took the lead. Farming wasn't just about planting. It was about taming. They started with plants: wheat, barley, lentils. The wild varieties were fragile, seed heads shattered, plants scattered. But humans resowed the mutations: grains that stayed intact, grew faster, fed better. Over time, they created new species, crops that couldn't survive without humans. Then came the animals. Goats that wandered less. Sheep with thicker wool. Pigs that fattened easily. Wolves that stayed near fire, eventually becoming dogs. These weren't pets. They were tools, companions, security, and food. Domestication wasn't just survival. It was control. But every gain came with a price. As humans shaped nature, nature shaped them back, biologically, socially, even spiritually. The wild was no longer a mystery. It was a machine, one we were learning to operate. Once food could be grown and stored, something extraordinary happened: people stopped moving. Villages emerged. Permanent dwellings. Clay granaries. Stone ovens. Storage pits. One of the oldest examples is Çatalhöyük, in modern-day Turkey, built around 7,500 BCE. Homes were packed together, roof to roof. No streets. No rulers. Just people living, and dying, with grain beneath their floors. Agriculture gave rise to excess. More food than needed. Which meant specialization: potters, builders, traders, priests. Suddenly, not everyone had to gather food, some could create tools, tell stories, or organize belief systems. The seed didn't just grow crops. It grew culture, Historians call it the Neolithic Revolution, the most transformative moment in human history. It turned roaming bands into villages. Villages into cities. Cities into civilizations. Populations exploded. From hundreds to thousands. From scattered kinships to organized societies. With farming came governments, religions, taxes, and eventually, warfare. But it wasn't a utopia. Farming created malnutrition, less variety in diets. Disease, from animals and crowding. Class inequality, land ownership. Conflict, over water and soil. Farming gave us control, but also dependency. And once started, there was no going back. The human body changed under the plow. Literally. Skeletal remains show. Shrunken bones from less protein. Tooth decay from high-carb grain diets. Signs of repetitive labor, knees, spines, hands. But the brain changed too, abstract thought, calendars, spiritual systems, all built to understand cycles of planting and harvest. Time itself became a human invention. Seeds taught us seasons. Seasons taught us measurement. Measurement gave us mathematics, and writing, and law. All from food. It's likely that women were the original farmers. While men hunted, women gathered, learning which plants healed, which poisoned, which fed. Their knowledge of seed behavior, soil, and growth cycles was passed down through generations. But with the rise of surplus, power structures shifted. Land became wealth. Strength became dominance. Male-controlled institutions, temples, palaces, armies, took root. Farming created civilization, yes. But it also buried the role of women deep beneath the layers of patriarchal history. We're only now unearthing that truth. Why agriculture began, and why around 10,000 BCE, is still debated. Here are the leading theories. Climate stabilization, the end of the Ice Age created fertile lands. Population pressure, growing groups needed stable food sources. Cultural evolution, humans developed complex thinking, saw patterns. Oasis hypothesis, drying lands forced humans, animals, and plants into close contact. But maybe it wasn't a reason. Maybe it was a moment, a perfect collision of intelligence, environment, and chance. Whatever sparked it, agriculture was the first human technology to reshape the entire planet. From one seed, the world changed. Every city. Every invention. Every war, law, and belief, they trace back to that moment when humans stopped chasing nature, and started shaping it. We built temples, walls, pyramids, nations. But none of it, could exist without that quiet revolution that began in the soil. Civilization didn't start with a sword, a wheel, or a word. It started with a seed.